ready to go, but sure, here he comes. There he is.
Hello.
Where are you?
Running late. Apologies.
No worries. Ian and
I
I were just getting paranoid that we had got it wrong.
no. I left this. I should have said actually last week and the week before. I keep forgetting to tell you. And remind me when everybody's in. I made this so you guys can turn up and chat to each other anytime you want.
Oh, right.
Fair
So
enough.
if for example you and Una wanted to have a chat about cameras on Friday, you can just agree to turn up. I keep forgetting to tell you, and I set it up this way on purpose, and then I've just continually forgot. You can make your Zoom. Don't do this for your kids, Ian. God knows what they'll do. But basically, you can set it up so that I'm the host, but I don't have to be there, and you guys can just have if four of you decided to talk cameras or whatever, you could just meet. Say, like, if you said, right, Friday night, everybody get a glass of wine and meet at 6 o'clock, you can, and it will let you.
Cool.
So whoever joins first is the host, which is that's why it doesn't work for kids. Never. There's a little tick
No.
box somewhere, and your kids will ban the teacher. I've heard all sorts of hilarious. They'll if a kid gets in first, they can block the teacher from turning up to the lesson, for example. So yeah, it's a function of Zoom that's extremely useful for sensible adult groups. But
So we can block you.
theoretically, yeah, you could. One of the times, actually, it was the first class I couldn't get in. It said I'm not allowed in, and it made me do the password to my own meeting. So I got it eventually, okay, but it was actually because one of you guys had joined first. But now I know how it works. But it's actually it's really good. I'd say if you had university students or even sensible teenagers, they can like talk about the class after class, or they can talk about the class before class, or help each other. Like if you had two students, you could say, if you're stuck, like I know my daughter has trouble with maths, but other students, they could maybe help her. So you could say, if you want to study together, that, so she would go around to her friend's house and she helps her friend with something she's good at, and her friend helps her. You could do that via Zoom, which is great, but open to quite dramatic, hilarious abuse if you're not careful. Anyway, how are you all doing?
Good.
Good. So pre-visualization. Oh my goodness, this is a bit of a nightmare. I'm expecting. I don't know. We'll see who turns up today. It can all be a bit too fluffy and airy fairy for a lot of people, especially if you've never done any artsy stuff before, because this is going to sound hilarious. Oh, here we go. I bet you this is Mars again. Hold on. I'm getting a phone call. Hold on, there me. Technical issues. That was Mars, yes. More technical issues, unfortunately. He says he's in the middle of, there are multiple Zoom calls happening at once, and he's trying to join this one. I think he's in the same situation as me. I have three teenagers, and whenever this clashes with school Zoom is a disaster. Zoom have only become popular from its demand, nothing to do with like their ability. Google, I'm actually going to use Google. Pretty sure I'm going to use Google for the next term, just because it works better, and it's free for everybody. But in short, if you have a couple of people in the house using Zoom at the same time, it causes all sorts of problems. So my kids are doing their Zoom, they're doing pastoral care stuff with their teachers via Zoom, and seems to cause trouble. Luckily, it's when they're both doing it with their two teachers. So it doesn't happen at the minute. It hasn't happened on Thursday yet. So we'll see. Anyway, so he says he will join us at some point. I think he's waiting for the Zoom queue. It's like the queue for the toilet or something, in his house. So once someone else logs off of Zoom, he'll be fine. So we will get, I guess I will jump in and we'll catch him up whenever he gets here. So this week we are talking about pre-visualization. It is a weird thing. It is a very, very weird thing, and it means different things to different people. But I'll talk a wee bit about what it means for me, and then throughout today's lesson, I'll be explaining it a lot better in terms of how I do it myself personally, and then it'll be up to you what people think different ways. This is more about thinking than photography, and about being creative and being artistic, and less and less and less about tools. I recommended, like I said, about Pinterest, and there's other tools, but they're all the same. A pen and a notepad is a good tool for this just as much as Pinterest or anything else. So very, very short version of pre-visualization: having an idea and making it happen. So having an idea and then making something a reality. It can be, if you're a woodworker, it can be thinking of a nice table and making a table. If you're a machinist, it can be making some sort of tool or something out of metal. If you're a painter, it can be wanting to paint something. And this is where this is really hard to teach, and this is where it can be very personal for different people. It's realizing your ideas. And it's something that's not unique to photography. It isn't unique to the visual arts, but it tends to be just, I'm trying to think of any form of creation really, be it like if it's baking, if it's painting, if it's photography, if it's sculpture, if it's engineering, if it's designing a bridge. This is, at the end of the day, this is something that doesn't exist and then making it exist. So for me personally, with what I do, I have a very visual mind. So I see or imagine things in my head and I want to create them. So it's some sort of idea that I've had, and it's either something that I think I would like to see happen, or it's something that I have seen happen and maybe want to change it or modify it, if that makes sense. Yes? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the way how you could teach this, it's like I'm like, how on earth am I going to teach this? It's like the way I thought to teach this was just to give, and how I've done this in the past is there's two bits to this for me. For me as a creative person, I have an idea and I want to create something, and then as a photographer, there is a client has an idea and I help them create their idea. Now, the good news is one of these is quite easy. The client idea is easier for me to teach you with, because it's much harder for me as a person, because I have to get my head around their idea, and that's based on their ability to express themselves, which can vary quite a bit. When it's your own idea, you know in your head what your idea is, and other people can argue with you and whatever, but at the end of the day, it's your idea. You have the best view of your idea, but it's probably the hardest thing to teach. So I'm going to start with a client, and then I'm going to show you just stuff, and it's ideasy stuff and my thought process and that kind of thing. But the most concrete good example is with a client. So I asked one of my old clients, you'll probably be pleased. Now, I'm going to show you the whole knicker drawer and everything today. You're going to see all the bad photos, all the rubbish, all of the argy-bargy, all of the misunderstandings. You're going to see everything. Photographers never do this. I am a teacher and a photographer. As a photographer, everything I do is perfect, first time, every time. I never make mistakes ever, which is a lie, and that's the lie that most photographers will perpetuate. But as a teacher, it's super important to make mistakes. It's the best way to learn, hands down. The best way to learn is to make mistakes. So I'm going to show you what the end result is like. Wow, that's amazing. However, it took a long time to do, and lots of mistakes and lots of thinking. So I'm going to show you the conversation between me and the client backwards and forwards. and the thought process of how that went along, and then the actual shoot itself, the iteration process of here's what I want in my head, and I failed, and then I failed again, and then I failed a bit more, and then I failed a bit more on top of that, and then eventually got to the point where, yes, what I was doing was matching what I was thinking. Does that sound interesting? Okay. Okay. This is very much a to and fro thing. You will have millions of questions. Please just interrupt me and ask. I'm going to show you on screen. The best way I could was to take screenshots. I had a verbal and text and internet and everything conversation with this client. And the only way I could kind of catch it all was to take screenshots of our messages on the internet, but also there was conversations too. So if you've questions and there feels like there's blanks, ask me and I'll tell you. So without further ado, and I asked her permission for this because, not because I needed it, but because sometimes this is very personal for people, and having an idea and wanting to do something can be very, for some people it can be fine, and for other people it can be super personal. And it's just one of those things. So she was more than happy for me to share this. Wasn't an issue for her at all. But I know other people that I've done this with, this would be like looking through their knicker drawer as well, and they would be very upset to reveal their inner emotions and thoughts and feelings. But this is a lady, Mariona. You've seen this picture before. I will show you. I'll show you one of the pictures, and you're going to see all the shenanigans in the background here. So yeah, this thing here. There we go. So I showed this as an example to try and impress Darian before. So this lady her name is Mariona. She is a dance teacher. And I'll show you the beginnings of the conversation, but she's my daughter's dance teacher. She teaches in Lisburn. She has her own studio, and she knew that my daughter's name Amy, she knew Amy's daddy was a photographer, and she was aware of it to some degree, but didn't know really anything about my work at all. There's quite a broad range of photographers out there, so I could have been a landscape photographer or whatever, but discovered I was a people photographer and was curious, and mentioned in a conversation that she'd had her picture taken before by a professional but wasn't happy with the results. So that's the context to this. I knew Mariona for quite a while, as I guess I was a client of hers. So I was sending my daughter to dance with her and learn from her. If you have anybody who is big into dance, Mariona's an amazing teacher. So passionate about dance. Hopefully I captured some of that in the photography. Anyway, so that's the bit of the context and background. Any questions before I launch into it? This is the end result, and I'm showing you the end result, but we're going to go very slow. It's probably going to take an hour, and we're going to walk all the way up to this through all of the hoo-ha for weeks and stuff beforehand. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. So we had, let me see. So I have tried to capture this as best I could. And there will be lots of this conversation. Mariona is, and I use this as this is not a put down. She's a millennial in the strongest sense of the word, in that and I don't mean it in a put down anyway, she is extremely integrated into technology. So this conversation was carried out over messages via Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, in person, on the phone, and via text. And I found it extremely difficult to keep up with her, because she just treated that all as one big long conversation. And in my head, it was like I'm missing a bit of the conversation. What happened? Oh, she sent me something on Instagram. So there will be gaps in this. Anyway, before this, it was I'm not very happy with the photos I got. And it wasn't really the photographer's fault. It was a little bit her fault, but we'll get into that. So I got hey, Matcha, you do photography. Could you do this kind of stuff for me? So can you read the text on this? Is it big enough? Yeah? Okay. So I will show you the Google searches and things as well. I've tried to set this up so I can do that. We have, she sends me, and this is a very common thing. I get this all the time and it's totally fine, but it's also scary and a complete nightmare. We basically you get a message from somebody saying, hey, do this for me. So this is the link in the previous picture. She sent me this link and said, hey, Matcha, do you like do this kind of stuff? To which I kind of like cringed and balked. This is oh, hold on. So she had heard of this photographer, Sue Bryce, and was aware that she did really pretty dance photography, and basically sent me the Google search saying, hey, can you do this kind of thing? Now, she didn't know at the time, but I had actually must have been the guts of a year where Sue Bryce was mentoring me. She's an American photographer based out of LA. She's very talented photographer from the point of just makes really beautiful art, and very much captures, like, I guess, like the flow and the femininity and stuff in dance photography. So it's a very specific kind of style. Regardless of what work you see, it's all very soft and pretty, and I mean, it's beautiful work. So she sends me this picture and this link and all these pictures of my mentor, this lady here. This is her here.
I'm not seeing any of what you're talking about.
Oh, darn it. It's doing it again. Hold on.
Are the others seeing it, or am I?
Is no one seeing the link?
I can see it.
No, I can't. So how do I get to see it?
If you go to view, hold on a minute. So, Una, can you see it okay? Give us a nod or a shake.
No problems.
You can. Darian, in the top corner of your screen, there'll be like a wee button for view. If you press that a few times, it should pop it up.
Share content, is that?
No, not that one. And in the top right-hand side, there's a view button.
There isn't. And there's participants, and then there's more. But the more only says chat, meeting settings, minimize meeting, raise hand, or disconnect audio. That's all I've got.
Right, let's try something else. Hold on. I will try again. This is why I don't like Zoom. It's spectacularly inconsistent. Okay, so can you see anything now, Darian?
See all your screen sharing. Yes, I can.
You can see it now, right? I did exactly the same thing. I just did it again. That's why I don't like Zoom. It's so inconsistent. Anyway, so you can see this now. This is a Google search. She had done a Google search of someone had mentioned this beautiful photographer does this amazing work, and unbeknownst to her, I'd actually been mentored by her, and this was a classic kind of client expectation versus reality. So Mariona had got someone to do photos for her on the cheap because I think they were just starting out or something, and she'd got some pictures taken and she didn't like them. And then she sent me basically one of the most world famous photographers' pictures. And can I get this? So I was like, oh no, like her expectations are quite high compared to her reality and or her budget. So this work is beautiful. Sue works out of LA. She's from New Zealand originally. She's a lovely lady and a really good teacher. She's actually a terrible photographer from a technical point of view, but doesn't care in the slightest. When I mentioned that photographer that works in LA that makes millions of quid, this is her. She has what I'd call dramatic, like absolutely disaster technical skills. She has, for the time she was teaching me, I realized immediately she had no clue what she was talking about when she talked about aperture. But it doesn't matter. She makes beautiful work. I didn't care. She tried to hide the fact that she sucked at the technical stuff, and very obvious to me immediately, and started asking her lots of questions. And I told her I'm not like a lot of photographers. I don't give a monkey's what tech she does or how she does it. Her work's beautiful, end of discussion. If she doesn't know how to work a camera and she can do this, I don't care in the slightest. She's very well thought after in the photography community, and just very talented. So
How can that be true, Matthew? You know what I mean? I agree with you, but how can she possibly do that without having some technical know-how?
well, this is the thing, right? So this is what I was saying to you. She's got a good eye. So
Yeah.
she studied design. I think she was a graphic designer when she was younger, and then moved into hairdressing of all things, and then moved into photography. And she has a background in fashion and design, and just like these, I mean, these photos, she sees the beauty in a dance. Dance is amazing, but the beauty in a lot of dance is the form and the flow and the motion, and she's capturing this kind of stuff, you know. Now maybe it's an assistant off to the side grabs her dress and throws it up in the air and then runs away and takes a picture. But at the end of the day, what f-stop or what shutter speed is less important. The drama and the beauty in these pictures is all about like style and just, you know, it's not about technical stuff at all. Technically, some of these pictures are probably diabolical, but it doesn't matter when they're beautiful.
Is she like, is it more like trial and error, do you think, with the lighting and everything?
To begin with, yes. I watched one of her videos probably 15 years ago, and she was very obviously just making it up as she went along, but doing a good job, but had no clue what she was doing. And then over the years, when I came to be mentored by her, it was about 2-3 years ago, she still didn't really understand all the technical stuff, but knew exactly what she wanted. So she shot in her studio with window light and shower curtains and net curtains out of IKEA and stuff, which I use as well sometimes. But basically, she knew she needed a big window in her studio, and she knew she needed, like this photo here, there's just a big window over to the side. She's not using any lighting at all whatsoever. Like, you know, so from a professional technical photographer point of view, she's like a rank amateur, because she doesn't know how, at this point in her career, she didn't even know how to use lights.
Yeah.
And when I went to her, I knew more about all that than she did, but she's still a better photographer than me. So
Wasn't?
Is she shooting on just auto all the time? She doesn't use any.
she's the one, I don't know if I mentioned to you guys before, she's the one who famously made her first $1 million shooting on auto. No camera skills at all whatsoever, like zero, literally zero. She spent her time, energy, and effort on hair and makeup, and then, you know, basically making them look and feel beautiful and making them feel confident. At the end of the day, if I know this is really hard to hear in a photography class, but your settings and stuff, how much of this is shutter or aperture? This is about engagement and hair and makeup and making her feel confident and empowered, and, you know, all that dramatic stuff. It's very little to do with f this and shutter that. You know, it's you need to know this stuff. But hilariously, as she would tell you, she just stuck in an auto, and say it worked 5 times out of 10, she just took 10 pictures. So, and threw away the bad ones, and only learned how to work her camera much later.
You see, when you're looking at one of her pictures, like you can look at, you said they're not technically accurate. So what's not technically accurate about some of the ones she's taken?
Okay. Well, to give you, let me think. I'm trying to think of some of her. Let me have a look at some of the examples of her work.
Sorry, I'm making you work.
No, don't worry. I'm just thinking. I mean, well, like this to give a and this is a terrible example. So to give an, like, see this, like if you're a portrait photographer or a professional studio photographer, if you saw this picture, the very first thing that comes to mind is like, where's her lights?
Right.
Because she has obviously, and now this was a class teaching posing. And this, in this class, it's like brutally obvious to the likes of me, who has technical expertise in lights, that she has no clue what she's doing, because she hasn't got any lights. She hasn't got any lights at all whatsoever.
Get natural light.
Yes, but why would you use natural light? You have to struggle with, and you have to work with it, and only shoot at certain times of the day. Whereas if you master lighting yourself, you can do whatever you want, anytime, every time.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, seeing these, and I've followed her for many years, and learned all about lots of really useful stuff to do with photography, the non-technical sides. Her work is stunning. Like her work, I don't know what you think of her work. If you like dance photography or not, you can tell it's a cut above but almost none of it is technical expertise or technical skills. And this photo here, she was widely criticized in the photography community because she was teaching all this stuff about photography, but she had no clue about photography. By her own admission, she would say the camera and all of that is not important at all whatsoever. The posing, lighting, makeup, the engagement with the person, that's far more important. And she's right, that is far more important for dance photography or portrait photography. For me as a portrait photographer, I would say it's 90% psychology, 10% cameras. And that's something Peter Hurley says, and I would very, very strongly agree with him. It's almost nothing to do with camera skill at all whatsoever. But, and this is where, hold on, you gotta see my face for this. This is where this whole elitist thing, what happened with her in the photography community was people look at her work and go, wow, she's amazing. She must have got somebody else to do that for her, because there's no way she's technically skilled enough to be able to do this. She doesn't, she uses, somebody asked her in one of her live streams, what aperture setting would you use? And she's like, I don't know, just whatever. And then everybody lit on her. Ah, internet police. How very dare you? How on earth can you do good photography but have no technical skill whatsoever? And it's at the end of the day, it's got nothing. That's why I teach this all the time. It's just a pencil. She's super good with natural light. She used natural light for years. In the photography community, someone who says they're a natural light photographer, that's a way of saying I am a rank amateur and I have no idea what I'm doing. So, that's what like elitist professionals would say. I don't care at all whatsoever. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you use a banana and a camera. I don't care what it is. If you get good results, that's all I care about. But I'm not the photography community.
Matthew, can I give you an example?
Yes.
Just recently, one of the Facebook groups I'm on, somebody posted a black and white image of a guy had his hands and a pigeon in his hands. And its beak was tucked in underneath one of his fingers. And he had done this colour pop on it.
Uh-huh.
So its eye was orange. Everything else was monochrome.
Mm-hmm.
And he was looking for a critique. Like, who am I? But I thought, right, I'll comment. So I said, I really like this picture. I know it would be classed, the evil that is Nipah. It would be classed as a colour picture because there's colour in it. However, it caught my attention. I found myself looking at the eye of the pigeon, and to me, the picture's about the pigeon's trying to say, I'm more than this, because it's kind of staring at the camera, but there's something else going on with the guy in his hands. So that was my comment, and it's sharp where it needs to be, and this kind of stuff. Somebody else came on, a guy who's well known in camera club circles, and he basically said, this is called colour popping and was very popular a couple of decades ago. Also, because the eye is not on the third, this would look much better as a square crop. Plus, there's something white that's blurry in the background, which is very distracting. That was it. Yeah. I thought, what you just said, pointless. I think it's a cracker photograph. So that was an example of what you say, the photography elite. Oh, this is not right because, it's just nuts.
And the reason I used to, I did a lot of this kind of stuff. She had weekly classes and stuff, and she would critique people's work and all that kind of stuff. And so got to know her. And the reason I use her an example is she's super successful and like stinking rich, because she's bloody good at people and dance and emotional photography. She's absolutely diabolical at technical photography. I without a shadow of a doubt, I'm years and years ahead of her from a technical point of view. While she's in her sports car on the way to her LA mansion, I'm sure she cries, sobs into the dashboard or whatever. She's super successful and super talented mostly because she has a design background, and she was a hairdresser, and she was a beautician, and she realizes that when it comes to, she does almost exclusively like women photography. It's generally females and dance and things. There's the odd man and things, but she's very, very good at just she calls it like the modern version of like the horrendous 80s glamour photography, where you come in and you get pampered and you feel good and you look good, and Vanity Fair kind of style where you're all dolled up and look really pretty. And she's like a world leader at that, and she has done TED Talks and done judging at like the Photographers Association of America, and basically she's a big league super photographer, rock star photographer. And I can look down my nose at her and know that I'm technically a million miles better than her. Who benefits out of that? You know, I'm so much better. Go me, I'm so much better than her. Teaching my, she last time she taught a class, she had like 5,000 people in the audience at the American. They have the same as it's NIPA too. It's the is it the NAI? It's the North American Institute of Photographers Association or something like that. So she had a full auditorium and did a 2-hour talk to them. So technically I'm better than her, but in every other way she's better than me. So it doesn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I'm smart enough to realize that technical skills versus creativity, the technical skills aren't important at all whatsoever. It's all creativity. But the photography community as a whole isn't. The photography community as a whole would still focus. They'd be like, oh, don't bother with Sue Bryce because she doesn't know anything about aperture or about lights or about whatever. And it's to their loss. Basically, they're going to lose out. I learned she didn't teach me anything technically. I was mentored by her for about 18 months. Not once did she ever teach me anything technical to do with cameras. Never once, ever. Everything that she knew, I already knew, and everything she thought she knew, I knew better. Genuinely, that sounds really cocky, but I knew way more than her. She taught me client engagement. She taught me hair and beauty. She taught me making people feel special, making people feel relaxed. She taught me far more important stuff than anything at all whatsoever to do with the camera when it comes to people photography. So apologies for the rant. It's something I care about very strongly, and it's something that is hilarious. It's hilarious, and it's something you're gonna have to teach yourselves to try and. You're gonna have to teach yourself to try and just be thick-skinned. For every one person like me, there's 99 other people in the photography community who think it's more important that you have a specific lens, or think it's more important that you shoot at a specific f-stop. I talked a wee bit about it last week with the macro police, and if you go online, you will very quickly come up against these folks. Anyway, apologies for the long rant. But hopefully me showing you this will show you, and this is the kind of stuff I learned from Sue, how to engage with your client, how to work out what they want, how to see inside their head. You have to try and work out, people will say, I want this, but they don't really want that. It's just what they've seen. So you have to try and go beyond that. So she showed me this stuff from Sue Bryce, and I panicked. And I literally said, I love Sue Bryce. She mentored me last year. I can do this kind of thing. Arty dance photos. Now, at the time, I was like, I can do this kind of thing. In my head, I can do this, but I'm nowhere near as good as Sue Bryce. I can do dramatic arty stuff, but not like her. Mariona is Spanish and English is her second language, so you can apologize, you can forgive her some of these things, but she just assumed terribly sexistly that it was a fella that had produced these pictures, so I corrected her. His pictures are lovely. Her, lol, she's awesome. Oh, haha. So anyway, but find me stuff you like, post it here, and I'll get an idea of the style you like. So Sue has a very specific style. I would call it a very soft, feminine style. If you look at the pictures, they're quite pastel tones. They're not very poppy. They're not contrasty. They're very soft, feminine. So even if I whiz through this really quickly, you don't see any dramatic primary colors. They're very rare. She really works in soft tones and pinks and peaches and pastels and things. So she's got quite a strong style from that point of view, that they're what I would call quite soft and feminine. Technically speaking, this photo is just terrible. It's super soft and not sharp at all, but it's beautiful because of it. Anyway, so that is that. She has So she's put the ball in my court about Sue Bryce, and I've gone back to her and said, okay, have a look. And she says, I like the dark background style. This was just in between. So she said, I like the dark background style. And then she sent me this link here, which was to an F Stoppers article. So this is an article from F Stoppers about like the top, basically the world's top 10 dance photographers. So at this point, I'm like, oh, okay, no pressure. This should be easy peasy. She's got quite high expectations still. I can get you the link for this if you want it. I'll send it over to you. Just drop me a message. But it's just some really stunning, on location, most of them out in cityscapes and things. This is like a bridge somewhere in Geneva, or I can't remember where, but this was like a real place, and probably took the guts of a full day to get this one picture. But anyway, her expectations are quite high, so that's giving you an idea. And I said, obviously those are beautiful, I could do similar, but there is a lot of work behind those, and I couldn't do them for free trade, as I would need assistance. The way I was talking through this with her was she was a marketer. She worked in marketing for about 10 years before she opened her own dance studio. And at the time, I was in need of some help with marketing. And I basically said to her, look, I'll do that. A, you're my dance teacher. You're my daughter's dance teacher, and my daughter loves you. And B, I could actually do with some of your help. So we'll work out some sort of price or swap, barter skills or whatever. And I still offer that today to folks. If I need their skills and experience and they're better at something than me, I'm happy to give them my services if they'll do the same. So she was asking for the moon on a plate, and she was asking this kind of thing. Just to give you an idea, I know myself personally, this needs me and an assistant and a day. So even if I'm doing it for her for free, I'm going to have to pay an assistant at least a tenner an hour, more like 20 quid an hour, to lug around bags and lights. And then I'm going to have to manage pedestrians in a situation. So I would probably need me and 2 other people to be able to pull this off, and a full day. So you're talking, even if I don't charge for my time, it's going to cost me a couple of £100 just for getting other people involved. And maybe I'd have to rent a generator, or maybe I'd have to get a different light. But it's just by looking at it, I can tell that it took a lot of work and effort because of the lighting and things and the location. He's a New York fashion photographer and a dancer. The one with the red dress, the photographer himself is a dancer. So he, as a dancer, has a much greater understanding of dance than I ever would, because I'm not a dancer. In case I hadn't told you that before. So I'm not a dancer. My daughter's extremely talented. Don't know where she gets it from. Not me or my wife. Both of us are disasters, so I don't know where she gets it from. But having some ability in the thing you're photographing will impact your ability to do that. So I'm basically telling her, this guy's New York fashion. New York is like where all the expensive photographers hang out. They just charge like thousands of pounds an hour, so it's quite expensive. So he's extremely expensive. I'm trying to work on her expectations. Good news was she didn't just want something like this. She didn't want that particular guy. She was talking about one of the pictures where there's a lady in the corner striking a really cool dance pose. So from this, I realized it's not so much about the quality of the photography for her, it's the poses and the capturing the really interesting dance. So I've, few big expensive shoots, those, yes, his portraits I can do. This is an example of something I did just with somebody down in Belfast. This is Custom House Square. And these are this was a fashion shoot, but it was just me showing her the kind of thing I can do because it was similar to what she was asking for. And then like this, but dance style, this is an old fashioned shoot. Hi, yes, but I think I would just do in a studio with a black backdrop. So she'd shown me pictures of this and said this was amazing. But then I showed her similar stuff I'd done, and then she said, no, I just want a black backdrop. So part of this is trying to work out, well, there's Morris coming in. Morris, hello. We'll give Morris a wee sec to connect, and I will catch him up. It might take more than a wee second. He's probably on it. Oh, he's on his own laptop today. He's not Rory. This could take a while. Cups of tea all around, I think. I'm gonna blather on because it could take a while. So she didn't necessarily know what she wanted. There's Mars now. Hello, Mars.
So, can I hear you? Oh, how do I get that? Let's see here.
Can you hear us but not see us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Start video. There we go. Hey, we have waves. Thanks very much. That's brilliant.
So, Mars, we're screen sharing at the minute. Can you see what's on the screen?
Participants. Not at the minute. We're still trying to cope here. I can see you. I can see Ian. There you go. There you go. Okay, yeah, I can see it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you missed so far, I was talking about pre-visualization is basically getting an idea in your head and making it happen. And I'm gonna, if we have time today, I'm gonna talk about some of my ideas and show you just how my thought process works. But I thought the best way to show you this was the to and fro between me and a client about her idea for what she wanted and me talking backwards and forwards with her and teasing it out, and then all the mistakes on the day of the shoot and actually all the messing. So it's kind of like, it's very rare to see. This is like the photographer's underwear drawer. You're getting to see all the dark secrets of professional photographers. Will just pretend everything they do is perfect, and they're all liars. Not one of them does everything perfect every time. But there's this expectation that the more professional you are, the less mistakes you make, which is true to some regard. But I'm going to show you all of everything. So we've got a dance teacher. She's my daughter's dance teacher. She had her pictures taken professionally and didn't like them, and didn't really know why she didn't like them. They were beautiful photos. She showed me the photos. They were well taken. They were professional. I wouldn't have been upset paying for them, no issue at all. But they weren't what she wanted in her head. And I helped her get what she wanted in her head by me getting into her head and working out what she wanted and kind of merging that together with what I had in my head. So far, she showed me this photographer. Her name's Sue Bryce. She was actually my mentor for a while, and she's a very, very talented dance photographer. She was basically showing me the moon on a plate. She wanted the world's best dance photographer, who cost about £2,000 for an hour session, and she wanted me to do that. So she set the expectations quite high. And then I asked her to show me different stuff. And this is screenshots of our discussion on Messenger. And basically, I got to the point where I was showing her some of the things I'd done that were similar to what she wanted. She was talking about this kind of thing, which is urban dance photography. It's going out into an area and taking pictures in a recognizable location. And it's quite expensive and difficult to do because you need a lot of assistance to basically hold things and carry lights. And it takes quite a lot of time. So she showed me that. And I showed her similar things I'd done urban fashion photography. So this is stuff I did out in Belfast. There's Albert Clock in the background and Custom House Square. And then she liked those, but no, she didn't want that. So this is the point we got to just before you joined. She would like to do it in a studio with a black backdrop. So I have done a load of pictures with my daughter, Amy, in the past, and the teacher had seen these. So I said, like the Amy ones, I have 3 backdrops in my studio. I have a black one, a white one, and a grey one. Yes, I think I want quite a dark style, if that makes sense. Now, this is about as vague and ambiguous as you get. Mariona is Spanish, and English is her second language. She speaks phenomenal English, but there's always a bit of a language barrier. But even it doesn't actually matter what language she speaks. When a creative person is talking to a non-creative person, or a photographer is talking to a non-photographer, or a painter is talking to a non-painter, there's always a bit of a language barrier. She said she wanted a dark style, but that's not what she wanted. But that's what she said. So I was trying to work out what she wanted. So I said hard light. Hard light would be very dramatic, sharp, contrasty light. I'll show you some examples and things. But the stuff that she was interested in was very soft beauty light. So these kind of examples here, this is quite soft light. The shadow on her leg here is quite soft, but then this is quite hard. This is quite black and white. And these are all very, very, very soft. So so far she was telling me she wanted hard light, but she was showing me soft stuff. So I was kind of asking her, do you want like contrasty and dramatic? Yes, I would like contemporary dance style, so quite dramatic. Contemporary dance style is another super vague term. That's just, if you ask one photographer what his contemporary dance style photos are like and another, you'll get two different things. So it's very difficult trying to source this out and work this out with her. So I asked her to send me more pictures she liked. I sent her this picture. This is a portrait. I've only got the top and bottom of it. This is a portrait I did, which had a very stark black backdrop. This was just a black backdrop and a bright, punchy portrait to see if she liked the black backdrop. Is that the dark backdrop or the dark figure? Which do you like? So I was trying to work out, does she like black as a backdrop or darkness in the figure? And she sent me this. So she sent me this very strong, muscular pose with a very, very, this would be like, this would be called like a, what do you call it? I've forgotten the name for it now, but it's mostly dark tones photo, but then also sent me these ones of like a black backdrop and quite contrasty light, and then a white backdrop and quite contrasty light. So I'm getting these mixed messages from her. I like these styles. The first one is insane. You can even see the engagement of her back muscles. This one here, you can see like this. If I zoomed into it, you can see a bit better one. So this one here, you can see like very, very strong muscles and things in her back. So
Is that low key?
low key, that's what it was. Sorry, yes, low key. So high key would be predominantly white tones and bright tones, and low key is predominantly dark tones. So yeah, so this is quite a low key picture. But she was contradicting herself. So she sent me like dark pictures and bright pictures, and so I was like, hold on a minute, she doesn't really know what she wants. Insert married wife, husband jokes here. But in short, she just didn't know what she wanted. And it's my job as a photographer to work that out. It's not her job. She knows what she wants in her head, but it's very, very difficult to express this. If you're a professional, it's difficult to express this. If you're not a photographer, it's even more difficult to express this. So I'm trying to talk to her in photography terms. But this was the key thing here. You can see the engagement in her back muscles. So for me then it was like, okay, that's called fitness lighting. I can do that. That's a specific kind of lighting that you use to emphasize muscles. We'll not bore you with all technical details, but it makes you look more muscly. But it wasn't even that she wanted. So she said, I like these styles, blah, blah, blah. I said fitness. So I showed a fitness person here. This is very classic fitness photography. And, Morrison, Ian and co, we can all look like this with the right kind of lighting. Just takes really good light.
A lot of distance.
It would be so light.
Hey, you won't believe, like, you can get fake abs. If you've ever seen, you can quite literally fake abs with mascara. So if you can do it with mascara, you can do it with a light. No, you can, and I don't think I could pull this off, but I can get close. So anyway, long story short, very good lighting. Very good lighting will emphasize these muscles, but she's
ready.
Yeah, that's it. So although she's not sure she's any muscles, very hard light equals awesome muscles. So I'm trying to explain to her, like, this is a specific style of lighting. And she says, I love the lighting. So I can do that easy, trust me. And if you want the black backdrop, I can shoot in your studio. And she's thinking, okay, studio will be fine. I had done a dance shoot with my daughter outside, and she's saying, I'd love to join the girls next time outside in my leotard. And then we're talking here a wee bit about marketing and things and how she's going to help me. And I've been helping her out with photography stuff for a long time, so I had a hard drive to give her back and all of that. So you're getting warts and all here. Yeah, and me saying, I know what I need. I need someone to do it for me because I'm bad at it. This is marketing. And she was a marketer for 10 years before she opened her own dance studio, and just didn't even realize my daughter had been going to her classes for years. And I'd been whinging about needing someone to help me with marketing, and she'd been whinging about bad photos, and made an agreement to just do each other's backs, basically. So she said a wee bit about that. Depends on your customer, right? Let me see. Okay, and then I'm just talking about that's the same thing about giving her the hard drive. And then now we're getting down to organizing a day. So her first expectation was that this would take like half an hour and we could just knock this out, no problems. And I had to work on that. So I was basically saying, look, the kind of thing you're wanting to do, it takes a lot of time and effort and energy. So we need to get a big chunk of time. I had kept the entire day free, and was planning to turn up at like 9 o'clock in the morning and shoot for 8 hours straight. She thought it would take half an hour, so she had planned to teach as normal that day and finish at 5. So we were starting at 5:30, and basically my daughter and Mariona, we were going to shoot some of Mariona and some of my daughter and some of the two of them together. She had 2 things she wanted out of this. There was a separate conversation happening, Morris. This was on WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, text, phone, coffee meetings, over the space of literally, and it's quite spread out. So if you have any questions, ask me. But she had said in one of the other meetings, she wanted personal portraits, but she also wanted teacher work portraits. She wanted to be able to show people what I call like a work portrait or an environmental portrait. So something that shows very obviously I'm a dance teacher. You look at it and you see her and you say, right, she's a dance teacher. It's like if you ever see a picture of a guy standing at a desk with a fake clipboard and a pencil, it's the classic like stock photography, I work in an office, or they've got a phone to their ear or whatever. And they're very obvious, but they're kind of a joke and a meme on the internet. But for people in the real world, it's super helpful to have a picture that shows, yes, I do X in one picture. So all set for later. Part of this was she had an idea what she wanted, and I had an idea too, and I tried to steer them. I'm giving her clothing and styling advice. This is the kind of stuff I learned from Sue Bryce. This is more important than f-stops or shutter speed or anything. All set for later. Amy's bringing lots of black clothes. Stick to plain stuff without brands or labels. We're stopping for Tesco. Oh, we're stopping at Tesco's for snacks on the way. We will beep our car when we arrive. Lots of heavy stuff to bring in. Drop it at the front door while we park. Any questions, let me know. So this is her work page, so she has a standard response pops up. But basically, I was trying to steer her, and we had a separate discussion about this. I told her to stay away from patterns in her leotard and in her clothes because they don't translate well when you're trying to do dramatic, contrasty photography. If you have a big wavy pattern or a stripe, it draws lots of attention in a black and white photo. So I already had an idea of what I wanted to produce before we even started. So I knew that certain types of clothes wouldn't work. So this is just more hoo-ha about hair and makeup and things. She wanted to do hair and makeup. I said, no real need. This is about shape and form. Very minor makeup, if at all. Hair, a quick brush. So she was wanting to do a full face of makeup and eyeshadow and foundation. I have a makeup qualification. I could have done it for her. But for the purpose of doing dance photos, this was almost entirely irrelevant. If you look at these photos, the size of her head in the frame is tiny. This lady's not even looking at the camera. Neither is this lady. So makeup, in this case, makeup for what Sue would be doing, makeup is more about making them feel confident and pampered and happy and attractive, which will affect their emotions and mood in the shoot. So I didn't need makeup from a photography point of view, but I was happy for her to do her own makeup. I didn't need her to do makeup at all, but I didn't say don't do your makeup, you're just wasting your time, because that would upset her and make the shoot more difficult. But I was trying to tell her not to spend too much time on makeup. But I knew for her, as a young woman who has grown up in a society where, like, I've only seen her without her makeup once in a couple of years, so I know it's important to her. So I knew she wouldn't feel happy outside without it. So she had to do, even if I said no makeup, she'd still wear eyeliner and lippy, bare minimum. So anyway, long story short, the makeup wasn't a part of it, but that was discussion. The hair wasn't too much of a part of it either, but that was a discussion as well. And then we got to, now this is the bit at the end, so I'm going to skip to the actual shoot. Any questions while I dig this up? So this is, up till this point, we hadn't done the shoot, and then the rest of the discussion is after the shoot. So I'm trying to show you all of this. So I'm trying to show you basically from point A to point Z and everything in between, so you can get a good idea of it. So here we go. This is, where can I do this? So, okay, can everybody see that okay? Get rid of this. Clear this up a bit. Everyone see this?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so this is the conversation there was, we're on our way down, we're stopping at Tesco's to get snacks. She thought we were going to be there for half an hour. I told her it would take hours and hours. I have a teenage daughter who dances and requires a constant supply of carbs. So I knew I had to stop at Tesco's for sausage rolls and all sorts of things beforehand. She eats like a pig, but she's like a stick because she dances 8 hours a day. I guess I would be too if I danced 8 hours a day. But I knew on the way there, I knew it was going to take time. So I planned accordingly. We had drinks and snacks, and I brought some for Mariona as well. Told her it would take hours, but she thought, no, this would be fine. We'll get it done in 20 minutes. Dead on. So I arrived. This is her studio. And this was my first lighting test. And I was basically working out what can I do to get the result that I want. I wanted, in my head, I wanted a spotlight and I wanted a dark backdrop. Now, the problem here was I was hoping I could just put one of my lights up, bounce it off the ceiling, and get enough of a spotlight on the ground that I would get a big black backdrop. But as you can see, I feel terribly here. The lighting is no good. You can see all the junk in the background. She's got a radiator. She's got a reel of clothes. She's got all sorts of stuff on the walls. This would make for a really amateur-y looking picture. Fair enough. Everybody agree? Maybe somebody loves it, loves all that stuff. But compared to, you might love this, but compared to what I wanted, this wasn't what I wanted. I wanted dramatic backdrop and a spotlight. So then I had to tinker with some settings, and it got worse. Then it got a little bit better. This is getting closer, but I realized quickly that at this kind of settings, I would be having a lot of trouble and I'd be struggling. So I decided to change my lighting. I took the, this is a little modifier. It doesn't matter what it is, but this is just a wee modifier. And I thought, well, I'll try it like this. And then this, at this point, it gets much worse because the light is much more spread out. So if we look between like this and this, you have a spotlight above and then you just have a broad beam. So the lighting got worse, but I worked my way through. So this is a test then with certain settings. This was like maybe a higher aperture. And I worked my way through with a snoot. So this is, probably can't see it properly, but this is a snoot. It's a metal tube. Don't worry about these things if you don't know what they are. What I'm trying to show you and explain is the process of making loads of mistakes. So these are all mistakes. This is a test shot with my daughter. So as you can see, she's super happy about the whole thing. or you can't see anything. It's a disaster. Then this is her looking super enthused and excited and whatnot, teenage girl. So I'm like, hey, stand over there. I'm going to try something different. So I put this, this is a light on a boom pole up above like a street light. And this was getting more like what I wanted. And basically I messed around with this for quite some time. These are all terrible. In case you're wondering, I'm not trying to pretend they're good. These are all terrible. Now we're getting close-ish. And I'm getting her to adopt the classic T pose because when I'm taking her picture, her face isn't actually going to be that important. It's going to be her body. So I needed her spread out a bit. So I told her to stand really stupid looking with her arms stretched out. Because taking a picture of a person as a portrait is very different than dance. Dance is more about body and flow and shape. So trying your lighting out on a one-person head won't help you when you're trying to do like a full body dance picture, if that makes sense. Any questions at this point?
Nope.
Okay. Still more messing before I start to get what I want. These are all, I'm going to skip through these. There were lots of these. I'm only showing you this so you can see that this isn't, yes, I turn up. Yes, I get what I want, but nobody turns up and gets what they want straight away. This takes a lot of experimentation and messing about. Eventually, I got to the point where, so this one, I'm still not 100% happy with the lighting, but I'm getting close. Give it a wee sec to load in. It's going to take forever, is it? Can you guys, for me, this is all blurry. Can you see it sharply? No.
No.
Right.
It's my PC is struggling with zooming and screen sharing and everything all at once. You don't need to see the detail. It's the darkness here. It's super dark everywhere. So everywhere in the picture is really, really dark. There's a little bit, you can barely see the background, but you can see it a little bit. But this is the kind of more lighting that I was trying to get to. So I asked Mariona to come in and stand underneath it. And I tried out some stuff with Mariona. This is mostly just, again, messing about. And then at this point, I'd probably been mucking around with the light for half an hour. I warned her. I told her to go get her, she was going to get her dinner because she'd been teaching all day. And I said, I'd come down and have a muck about with the lights. And then you and Amy can go to, I think she took her to KFC or something for a treat. But long story short, they were going to go off and I was going to work on my own. So I worked about on the lights on my own for a while. And then when they came back, I was much more what I wanted. So between those pictures, I had a load of messing about with the light, moving it around, changing the distance from the wall to the light and from me to the light. So I ended up moving the light further away from the wall to make the backdrop more black. So this is the same settings on the camera and the same settings on the light, but we've moved further away, if you like. And now I asked her to test this. Now we're getting, it's not a strict fitness lighting, but we're getting this kind of muscular engagement and showing off the muscles and things. And this is getting more into the lighting that we wanted for the shoot. Still like test shots and messing around. This is my daughter's crazy back muscles. She is this ripped in real life. She's just like super. She did gymnastics and dance for years, and she's mad passionate about dance. And then I wanted to try some top-down type stuff to see how the light, with the same light, how my change and my elevation changed the light. It's all relative between you and your subject. So if the light stays the same, but you move your subject and move your point of view, the lighting changes even though the lights stay in the exact same place. So this is a bit of messing around. Again, more messing around. Now we're getting into like actual shoot where I'm able to get some sort of stuff that I like. And eventually I'm pretty sure I settled down on like this as the lighting. So let me see where they'll start to, they're going to start to, the white one. Yeah, so this is where we start to get into, I'm going to switch to the, I'll skip through this quickly to show you. These are the raw pictures and they're not resolving properly on the screen here. So I'll skip through really quick. So these are, some of them aren't. They're just taking a long time to load. So these are attempts at the same thing. So that was just to test what type of silhouetting I would get. This is a leg stretch. In this, there's a lot of things at play here. There's her performance. So is her leg straight enough? And then there's my lighting. And then in this case, she giggled and ruined it. So she's like smirking and ruined the picture. We were trying to do really like, but then I got one of her nicely smiling, which was just a nice smile. So I decided to use that one. Mostly because she's trying really hard. If you've ever done that, it's really hard. She's standing unaided, holding her legs straight up, basically. So that's like a splits in midair with your legs straight in the air. And then again, now this too dark. Then I got her to turn her face to catch the light, and she's trying to show off shape and form. And then I put the lighting up a little bit to get a much better result with the lighting. And then we tried some. So this was legs up in the air, but they're off to one side. So that triggered my OCD. I wanted them nice and straight in the middle. This is straighter in the middle, but still not 100% straight. That's more straight. And that was the one I think I used for the final picture. And then this is my daughter trying to do the same thing. And we basically worked through. So this is like one of the final pictures, but this one, her legs weren't straight. So her teacher had her angle her legs and her knees more, like to be like this. And And Mariona then did some, basically it was a to and fro between her and her teacher, teaching her and me taking pictures of them both while they were teaching and posing at the same time. So I got like my daughter doing slightly better versions, and then wanting to get some just nice, these are just nice pictures of my daughter with her teacher, but something dramatic. So we're going for a bit of a Bohemian Rhapsody album cover type thing here, which didn't work great. But then we got this one. So we got a really nice one of the two of them. And I mean, my daughter, and Marion was just, before all of this, Marion was a stranger to me, but my daughter has been going to Marion to learn dance for years, so has got really friendly. Mariona teaches dance, and now Amy actually helps her and teaches some of the younger kids as well, so she's teaching dance with her. So she's teaching her dance, but also teaching her to teach dance, which are two very different things, as I keep explaining to people. And then these are her I'm a dance teacher pictures. So these are a wee bit staged, but she's trying to show, like, that one. There's a terrible, like, photographers never do this. Look at this. Oh my God, it's terrible. Anyone like this? Hope not. Massively overexposed. When they were sitting on the ground, the exposure was fine because they were far away from the light, and then I had them stand up to do this. But when they stood up, they got closer to the light, so the light became much, much brighter, which messed everything up. So I just cried, threw my camera away, and went home. Or I just changed the camera settings. I actually changed I went way. This is a picture. It's not just a black cat in a black coal mine or whatever. This is the same picture, but I messed it up as well. And then I got the right kind of picture. So I make mistakes all the time. Every photographer does. When I teach folks to make mistakes and then change things. So if you make a mistake, I made a mistake, I changed it. I actually went way the wrong way and made it.
Was that a picture, Matthew?
Those are both the same picture. Look very closely. Hold on.
What did you change to get the right picture?
Well, let's see. Hold on a minute. Let's have a look. So file information. Right, here we go. So you're getting the real. This is shot at 1/160 ISO 100. I'm guessing I changed my f-stop, but I might have changed the power of the light. No, I changed the power. So these two photos, these are all the same.
Yeah.
I would have wanted to maintain the same depth of field, so I would have kept the aperture the same.
All right. Okay.
But I would have changed the power of the light, so I took the light down a few stops, and I took it down too many. So say this is probably 2 stops overexposed, and this is probably 3 or 4 stops underexposed. So I went way too low. So then I did another one somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
And whenever I'm like, when you're doing this kind of stuff, I make mistakes all the time, and I'm happy to tell people that I make mistakes. So I said, oh dear, I messed that up. Let me do it again. And so we did it again, and then I messed it up again, and I said, let me try one more time. And then I knew I went way too much and way too little, and then I got one nice in the middle. And then we did a little bit of like different practicing for different things, for different types of stuff for her. These were ideas she had about what she does on a daily basis. She corrects people's posture. She fixes their shoulders. She fixes their chins. She tells them to point their toes. And this was all kind of funny and silly for Amy because she's used to this all the time, but this is something that it's normally very serious, but this was kind of played out and pantomimed a little bit. So there was a lot of this. But here, like some of these pictures, you can really tell she's got a really strong connection with her student. This is one of her favorite pictures because she's correcting her student's posture, but there's this really good eye contact between the two of them. And these are all just straight out of the camera, I should have said. None of the pictures I take are perfect out of the camera. Some of them are really close to perfect, but not all of them are perfect. So this would have had a bit of work before it became a final photo, but it's just to show you, I always try to get my lighting right in camera, but I still make mistakes. Don't ever forget this, and don't ever trust it. Like, that's diabolically terrible. There's no other way of putting it. That's like the most diabolical, terrible picture ever. But photographers just don't show you that. They just show you this, or that, or this. I got her in these 2 photos. I knew from Sue. So Sue taught me that eye contact is very important in photos. So I knew that the difference between this photo and this photo is actually quite dramatic. Purely, I just said, "Hey, look at your feet." And the difference in the feeling and emotions and connection in those two photos is very different. This one's all about Mariona, the teacher, and this one's all about their relationship together. You see what I mean? In terms of like, so that Ian was saying, you know, how can Sue be so awesome? That's how Sue's so awesome. Because none of this, like, yeah, all this stuff in the background in the photo and all is important and cool, but that makes a big difference to this photo. Just that wee thing. So we had a couple of play arounds with that, and then we moved into like the traditional dancey type stuff, and she just basically showed off and showed me different cool things, and I said what looked good and what didn't, and we basically played around with dance posing for quite a while, and worked on just trying. I think this was one of the final ones we got, or it might have been when she was looking away. Yeah, her looking away. So this photo was one of the final ones, and I preferred it and she preferred it because her eye is over here and she's not looking at the camera, whereas this pose, it's a bit weird because she's looking at the camera. For me personally, you might like this one better because she's making eye contact, but I didn't like it as much. I preferred this one. So we had and this one, her finger is causing a shadow on her eye, I think, so I asked her to move her finger. So we had there's a lot of fine finagling and finessing for this. This isn't something that just kind of happens by magic. So the difference, this one here, her hand is shadowing her right eye, and then I asked her to move her hand ever so slightly. See that? This is all super minor stuff, but it's the final result. And this is something that helps whenever you're editing your photos. The last picture I took in this pose, when I seen this, I was like, perfect, that's exactly what I wanted. I'm super happy. That's what I seen in my head. I have a dramatic black backdrop, and I have really sharp, strong, like it's just very dramatic. And I improved it up a bit in post, but this is straight out of camera. Obviously, I photoshopped this out, which some people would consider cheating. I don't care. If I like what I get, I don't really care. If I'm photoshopping someone to look taller, skinnier, that upsets me. But if it's taking out things like this, I have no issue with it at all. I edit my photos in reverse order. So when I look through the photos, this was the first one I seen, and I know that this is the best one because I normally stop when I get what I want. That's a super useful tip. So then we moved on to something else. We tried a bunch of different poses. None of these looked that great. We mucked about with this for a while, and we ended up not really liking any of these. They looked more like gymnastics kind of stuff than dance stuff. It's taking forever to load. Right, that's enough behind the scenes. I'm going to show you just I will show you just the actual. So these are the final pictures, if you like. And hopefully you've seen enough of the dirty knicker drawer kind of stuff to give you an idea. None of these were perfect to start with, and none of them just happened by magic. Hopefully you've seen. If you've any questions, like ask. But hopefully I'm showing you that it's a process. The pre-visualization, you can have a really strong idea in your head, and no one can just click their fingers and make that happen. You have to iterate and make mistakes to get the things you like or get the things you want. You might never get exactly what you had in your head. You might never get to that, but you can get close, and sometimes close is good enough. So with this kind of stuff, this is one of the engagement ones from before. So one of the pictures showed her being super duper muscly, and she hated it because it made her look too muscly, because she is a teenage girl and she wants to be tough and cool, but she doesn't want to be like the Hulk, basically. So and part of this is the final photos. Actually, are these the final photos? Hold on, let me see. Did I put them in here? I think I had a final folder, did I? What way did I do it? Just for an idea of numbers, by the way, let's see. So we had 391 pictures, and it took about 4 or 5 hours, say about 100 pictures an hour, something like that. So, right, these are the final ones. We'll whiz through these real quick. So, if you've any questions about how to recreate or make any of these, just let me know. But these are, like, technically, this is terrible, but I just really liked her smile. The lighting here is really bad. I messed up pretty bad. But I was able to get a really nice emotion out of my daughter. And then these are just, this one, Mariona really liked it, but I hated it because it looks really weird because of her leg just floating off into space and her other leg isn't visible. I sent her this and she said, is there any way you could chop off my tummy because I'm fat? That's literally what she said. She's like, I'm way too fat. This looks terrible. Please just chop it off like here. And I knew that would look terrible, but I sent it to her anyway because that's what she wanted. Part of that is the whole client expectation thing. It's like she likes this picture and I don't because it's weird. From a photographer point of view, there's nothing grounding her to the floor. She just looks like a floating torso, but she really likes it. So at the end of the day, she's the boss. Then a lot of these I did in color and in black and white, but I always in my head had planned for black and white. The difference between this and this for me is like night and day. This was what I had in my head, this kind of stuff. And a lot of this is, they were quite underexposed when I was shooting them, which was the plan, because I knew I couldn't, whenever things are underexposed, it's much easier to resolve the details and pull the details out of them in post. And my daughter loves this picture here. I was allowed to put this up in the hall in my house because it's a really difficult move and she looks amazing and it makes her look amazing basically. So she's really pleased with it. She hates getting her picture taken, but being able to do this with her dance, being able to put dance together, being able to show her passion and stuff for dance. And then this is, she asked me to do a headshot at the time and I said no, and then I ended up doing it anyway. And I told her doing a headshot and doing a dance shot are two different things. I'd spend more time drinking coffee and chatting with somebody to do a headshot than I would doing photography. And you can see on her face, I don't know if you can see this or not, but you can see there's a tiny bit of like apprehension or nervousness. If you look really closely, like here in her lips and here around her eyes, you might not recognize it per se, but you might think, does she look comfortable? What do you think? Show of thumbs, yes, no. It's like, ish.
She does. I think she does.
She does a bit, but if you knew her in person, so like if you met her in real life, you would not think this was representative of her because she's a little bit guarded in this picture, and you can tell from her body language. It takes this is the stuff Sue teaches and that Peter Hurley teaches as well. You consciously, you don't say, oh, this is bad because X, but you say something's not right. I know Mariona in real life. This doesn't represent her. Anyway, so I did it for her anyway because she asked, but I told her no, we weren't going to do that, but she nagged me, so I did do one for her at the time. So that was kind of that. And then we had the whole to and fro-in. Apologies, I knew that was going to take a long time. Is that helpful at all? It's kind of like, I know Sue did it, and teachers that I found really helpful in the past do it. They show all the beforehand stuff. Peter Hurley has a couple of good videos. He spends an hour and a half talking to a nervous client, trying to help them be less nervous. It's not at all about the cameras. If the session takes 2 hours, it's because they're nervous. He can do the same quality photography in 20 minutes if the client, if he has previously met them. He will charge them thousands of pounds for their first shoot and then give them a 50% off discount for the second shoot. Why is that? What's that, Ian?
Less time required to know
Why
each other.
Yeah, exactly. It's as simple as that. It's not like it's, oh, hey, Ian, how you doing? You know, I already know you. And there's a rapport built up already, even if it's only a little bit. His job is super easy the second time out. They're less afraid. They know what to expect. They know that Peter can do good results. They know what they're going to get. They know they're going to like what they get. They're coming back as a repeat client because they like what he did the first time. But the second time around, it takes him, he reckons, a quarter of the time to get the same results, because nothing to do with cameras, nothing to do with photography, nothing to do with his skills, just the other person's expectations and mindset. And it seems really weird, but trust me, it's like when I have difficult clients, I will take them out for a cup of coffee and like not even bring a camera with me and just talk whatever they want to talk about, just so they can get to know me and be less afraid of me. As soon as you have a camera in the situation, it just scares people really bad. So it's for those that did my beginners class, I get used to do engagement as one of the things at the end. And it's where basically I tell everybody we're going to spend the last class or the second last class taking pictures of each other. And the idea is that you've learned how to work your camera. And now I'm telling you that all that was rubbish and not really important. And the most important thing with taking people pictures is people. Your relationship with the person is far more important than any cameras. And I do it at the end of the class because everybody knows each other a little bit, but it's still really, really, really difficult. It was the class you guys missed out on. I think Una did it before. Mars, you missed it, but the one we were about to do was white balance, and the one after that was engagement. And I would have had you just pair up with somebody in the room, and if you knew them from previous life, you would find it very easy to take their portrait. And if they were a relative stranger and you only knew them from the class, you would find it more difficult. But you all at least knew each other and knew your names and things, and it's basically it's more important than any of the camera stuff. You have to know the camera stuff to be able to get a decent picture, but actually the whole engagement and everything like that is far more important. So 4 hours of shooting and probably 8 hours of prep, maybe more actually, might have been more than 8 hours of prep, but an awful lot of discussion and prep before the shoot. And for all the stuff you've seen me talking to her, for every time I talked to her, I probably spent twice as long thinking about it. So if there was 2 or 3 hours of talking to her, there was probably 5 or 6 hours of thinking things through. In my head, she had said a dark backdrop. So I knew if I was doing very dramatic lighting and black and white photos, if she was wearing a stripy top, or if she was wearing a houndstooth pattern, or if she was wearing any kind of patterny stuff, it would be very distracting in the photo. I knew colors didn't matter at all. If you're taking pictures with the intent of using black and white, let me see if I can show you from the example. So none of you even noticed this, and nor should you, because it's just the way our brains work. What, like, really obvious question here, what color's her leotard?
Crimson.
Okay, and what color's hers?
Black.
Right, but the final picture, if you look at these two pictures, this is very, very red and bright red colors, and crimson are very, very primary colors for our eyesight. Red is the one that you get attracted to the most. This is very distracting, as a little bit is her lips. But then when it's in black and white, it's just black and white. The red tone becomes a dark gray, and I knew that. So when I was going about shooting this, I knew that actually what color, like this is blue, but it doesn't matter. This is blue, so this is a light blue color, but I knew it would translate to just like a gray color, so it didn't matter. But if she was wearing something with a lot of stripes or patterns in it, it would have ruined the shot. Just so I knew that. So I was talking to her about clothing and leotards and all that kind of stuff before we even did the shoot. And I just knew that from experience, that if I'm aiming for black and white photos, the texture and the patterns are very, very dramatic in black and white, and can very strongly just draw your eye away from the subject. So rather than looking at a dancer in her form, you're looking at this big, like, leopard skin tights or something. I don't know, but something with a pattern. It doesn't have to be colors, just a pattern will be very, very strong in black and white. So it's kind of have an idea, make mistakes, think, talk, share the idea with somebody else, making lots of mistakes and thinking with her, and then the actual shoot itself is you're still you're modifying and changing that idea. I might have had, my first idea was I could be really lazy with my light and just point it at the ceiling, and that didn't work. So then I had to change and move on and do something different. And it's none of the stuff I'm teaching you is important except for the thing that is, don't give up. Just keep trying. The better you get, the less trying you have to do to get where you want. But basically, it's all about just making mistakes and trying different things, or inventing things, or doing different stuff. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Okay?
I ask you something, Matthew.
Yes.
Whenever you were in the studio, right? As I say, forgive me. We in the camera club have done a wee bit of. One of the other members did a wee bit of lighting work. I don't know how good he is or how bad he is. We were mucking about ourselves, doing what you were doing with a model. So it was all very, right, this is the theory that we've read. Let's see how this works. And it was like muck up after muck up. That's no good. That's not right. But we were always trying. It was a closed room. It was at night anyway. So we were trying to get rid of all the ambient light. So we had total control of the light. So is that a factor then whenever you were in the studio trying to get rid of all that background? And
Yeah. So
I know it's a
generally,
bit technical, but
no. It's the if you have I teach this in some of my classes too. A studio is just basically in your head, and it is really just the ability to control the ambient light. So I have a home studio, and I have really good blackout curtains and blinds, and they allow me to make the room completely black. And then I build my light up from there. Or when you're good at lighting and you know what you're doing, you can overpower the sun. But the problem with having sunlight is basically you have to spend money. So you can spend £1,000 on a really bright light, or spend 20 quid on blackout curtains. I am cheap, so I spent 20 quid on blackout curtains. You don't need, if you have to shoot outside in the middle of the sun, you need a certain expensive light. Light is, the brighter the light, the more money you spend. 100 quid will get you a really cheap, easy light. Like the ones I used are only about £100 each. They're super cheap. They'd be considered like rubbish in professional circles. But if you're able to control the light in the place, it doesn't matter. I was shooting at night. That was in November time, so by 5 o'clock ish, it was pretty dark outside, and I knew that. Otherwise, I would have had to plan differently. I had brought 2 lights with me, because if I used 2 lights, it would double the amount of light. If I have 1 light for £100, and I want to buy another light which is twice as bright, but it costs £400. This is an actual example. The light I have, I can't remember how many watts it is, but the light cost £130, and the one up from it is twice as bright, and it costs £400. Buy the £400 light, or you can just buy 2 of the £100 lights. And when you use the 2 lights together, literally two times 1 is 2. So it's simple maths. If you have a 60-watt light and a 60-watt light and you use them both at the same time, that's the same as 120 watts. So, in answer to your question, I always try to reduce the ambient light through common sense. Blackout curtains, blinds, shoot at night. If you can't shoot somewhere during the day, and it doesn't matter if it's day or night, just come back at night, and then all the light's gone. So, yeah. Or if you want, you can get your checkbook out, and you can spend up to £1,000 on. You can spend £3,000. You can spend £50,000. I was teaching a class, and they were doing a BBC something documentary or something in the building next to us, and they had a light out the front on an arm. And I know just from folks that I know that work in the movie industry, it costs £50,000 that one light, and you have to hire a cherry picker to hang it on. It's a giant thing. It takes a 3 or 4 man crew to work it, and they cost about £50,000. And you're not allowed to use them without a permit. If you touch it with bare hands, you'll just melt your skin off. The people that use it have big gloves and things, so it's a health and safety risk. But it costs £50,000. Or just do the same thing, but do it. If you did the exact same thing, but you chose to shoot at 7 o'clock at night, you could use £100 light. But for the BBC, time is money. They have a £50,000 light lying around anyway. Might as well use it. We need to shoot it now. It's 12 o'clock. We're shooting it now. Boom. So this light was pretending to be the sun in their TV thing, whatever they were filming. So they had a cherry picker. It was 70, 80 feet up in the air, shining down, pretending to be the sun on a cloudy day in Northern Ireland, because we don't have any sun. So you know, if you have the budget and you're rich, go for it. But basically, you can do whatever you want with whatever you want. But yeah, there's a lot of technicality to that, Ian. It's kind of like, and hopefully this class has taught you that, like those photos, technically my light was very good. But actually what makes those photos good is their performance and their like shape and form. And my light is drawing attention and hiding all the crap in the background. So you don't want to see your studio. I went there and cleaned up. Before I cleaned up, there were Tesco's bags hanging on the wall and bits of like stuff lying about, and just it was a mess. But even when I cleaned up, there was still a very cluttered background. So I had intended, I actually brought a black sheet with me as well, but didn't use it, and that was my plan B, to hang from the ceiling. I did it in another shoot at her studio because I was having to shoot little kids and they were more difficult to control. With Marion and my daughter, I was able to direct them, but with little kids, a lot of it was just that they're little kids and they won't do what they're told. So I had to cheat, and I hung a large black sheet up in the background to make it easier, basically. But again, it was about planning and thinking, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to get those results because I was not able to direct little kids basically in the same way. Any more questions before we move on to Pinterest for the last half an hour? No? So, I'm just logging into my Pinterest now. So, anyone ever used Pinterest before? It is a ideas collection thing, I guess I would call it. It's a good way to collate stuff, I guess. I will show you mine if I can find it. Right. Sorry about that. Here we go. Alrighty. So, Pinterest is I don't know what the correct terminology for it is. It allows you to. It's like a digital version of a collage book. I used when I was doing my makeup qualification, part of our coursework, we had to make collages of our ideas. I'll maybe show you some of that as well. I'll show you this first anyway, in case we run out of time. It's a digital version of the old scrapbooks you used to have as a kid. If you liked somebody, if you liked a pop star, you might cut pictures out of a magazine, stick them together, or whatever. But it's a way to collate things based off of like a topic or ideas or things like that. And these are basically just things that I've done when I've had an idea for something and I'm trying to visualize the idea or form the idea in my head, and I'm picking ideas from things and things that I like. So it's like a scrapbook, like a digital scrapbook. It's free. A Pinterest account is free, and it's, for me anyway, it's a good way to visually collect ideas like a scrapbook without it. So this I think was back from when I was doing my makeup course. This is just, I was looking around on the internet and seeing cool makeup ideas. And these were things that caught my eye. With literally like Audrey Hepburn, we were doing 50s makeup was one of our assignments, and Audrey Hepburn was one of the first people to really use eyeline to really do like the cat eye and things like that really dramatically and pull it off in a relatively subtle way. Anyway, we were looking around at different stuff, and I was basically just ideas that I seen. I was tagging interesting things that I found cool, and this sort of just holds them all together. And then now, warning, disclaimer, and all that, we're going on the wide open internet here. When you click, these are things I seen and I liked and I pinned. So these are pinned to my board. But when you click this button, it just goes all about the internet and shows you stuff. So God knows what we'll see. So apologies if there's anything dramatical. But this is based off of the ideas I've seen and I liked it's then showing you other things. So these are all like other. So it's a way of, if you see something you like, they might show you other stuff from the same artist, or they might show you other stuff with similar looks to it. So it's just a way of like browsing visually, so you can see. So these are, some of these are tagged as makeup, or maybe like Audrey Hepburn's popping up a lot here because she was one of the things that caught my eye, her makeup. So it's kind of like, just, it's a very, very visual way of browsing through. And each of these people is, behind all this, you got a person somewhere, and there may be a photographer or an artist or a makeup artist or something. And you, if I really like this, you can go investigate this person and see who she is, maybe look at his or her other work. And maybe this is the model and she's doing her own makeup, or maybe it's a photographer, or maybe it's a makeup artist. I don't know. But if I liked it, I could go find that out and go see these things and go work out. So it's, when you see something you like, it's a good way of browsing around. And the most important function of it is being able to group stuff together yourself. So things that you liked, you're able to basically put these together. I'll show you one of my other ones. Let's see. Okay, this is my stuff. So these are, I grouped these myself. I called them wow headshots at the time. These are just, I had a style of like dramatic, kind of punchy, a little bit like Peter Hurley's style, but a style of like the classic kind of bust headshots. So you're talking, they're all kind of the same framing, a little bit of a variation, some of them, but they're generally head and shoulders headshots, and strong eye contact and quite strong lighting. And I pinned these all together, and I was thinking about, at the time, I was thinking about marketing them as a wow headshot, but people see headshot on the internet and think all sorts of things. So this ended up not being a marketing idea, but it was just an idea I had about the types of work. Someone had mentioned that I did these quite, it seemed to be a common theme in my work, that I had these quite strong headshots. And they were just kind of traditional headshots, but quite bright and colorful or punchy in different ways. So just grouped them together like that. Any questions? Any more things before I show you more? I'm very aware that I'm doing all the talking this week. There's very little practical stuff in this. It's one of those things. It's kind of like, it's all ideas based. But feel free to ask if you've got any. If you're all dying of boredom, just tell me, and I can happily transition into something else. Because I know this is like, it's about as far away from photography as you can imagine, but it's also, for me anyway, it's one of the most important things. This, in terms of pre-visualization, like, to give you another idea, and this is a wee bit of a story. I was in Prague with my wife last March, or the March before, and this fellow's called Mucha, Alfonso Mucha. He was a graphic designer slash illustrator, advertiser in some time ago. I think it was the 1800s, and just happened to come across a load of his work when I was in Prague. I was aware of him, but never realized he was from Prague originally. And when we were on holiday, it sort of re-sparked my interest in his work, and I bought a book. I think it was like a biography. It was the life and times of Alfonso Mucha, or Alfred. Is it Alfred or Alfonso? I can't remember. Anyway, A Life of Time of Mucha, and it showed a lot of his different work. But when you're in Prague, there's actually a museum to him, and there's lots and lots of, because he's a well-known local from when he lived there, there's lots and lots of like touristy stuff you can buy and things. So I was kind of inspired to do a shoot of some description along these lines, which I still haven't done. But this was me just looking around. These are, if you've seen any, first off, I suppose, anyone familiar with his work?
No.
No? Okay. So you might, let me see, if I find some of it, you probably have seen some of it. He had this very strong style, and of like fairies and very ephemeral. Possibly Sue Bryce's works a little bit inspired by this. They're quite soft pastel shades and things like that, and quite arty. But in short, it was lots of, he did a bunch of work in France and in Prague, and became quite famous for promoting the theater. So there are various folks in theatre that he did their like promotional posters and things for. And his work generally has these quite strong, there's quite a lot of strong elements in his work that are similar across them. There's a lot of strong circles and reciprocating patterns and things like that. So if you see some of this work, there's a lot of really strong graphical elements like half moons and things and patterns and stuff like that. And generally these kind of framing, now this is a photo shoot inspired by it, and this is another one. But the work generally had quite strong kind of borders and framing across his work. So he had a lot of half moons and things like that, and a lot of quite a strong Art Deco theme to it. And just when you're in Prague, a lot of the architecture and stuff like that from the time was Art Deco. So there's Art Deco stuff everywhere. This is in the architecture and in the furniture and in everything whenever you're there. So seen a lot of that, and then went hunting around for things and read the book and read a bit about his life. And it's still an idea that I have that I'd like to do at some point. So I have this. This is, I think I put this together. It must have been after I came back from the holidays. So it was probably about 2 years ago now. And I just put these ideas together of things that I liked in his work. So that's kind of, I guess that's just kind of that. That's the background to that. Another thing I was messing around with, and this is inspiration from the world of anime and drawings. This is Japanese cartoons and stuff. They are it's something that photographers are very interested in. The catchlight, whenever you're taking a portrait of somebody, you can look into their eyes very closely and see the lighting setup the photographer used. Your eyes are like a very glassy mirror, basically, and the little dark parts of your eyes can show everything that's pointing at you. So when you look at a professional portrait, when you get very good at portrait lighting, you can look at the person's eye and you can say, there is a light. So for example, this eye, this is a cartoon eye, but the way it's been drawn, it's been lit from above, from front and above. And then this eye has been lit from like over here. You can tell from the catch light where the light is coming in. I could show you if you want one of my portraits, but basically where like this set of eyes here, the light is over to the top right. So the light would have been over here somewhere and above because it's coming down. So you can get an idea. And I was curious, I was wondering if I could use catch lights as a way of doing something cool in my work. So like creating something cool in the catch lights. Let me see if I can show you. No. I'm going to do the weird, like, look into my eyes. I'll have to hold my head really still. Can anybody see anything weird in my glasses?
Well, you're goggling your eyes.
No, well, if I close my eyes, because it's nothing to do with my eyes. If you look at my glasses, I'll look a bit closer here and see if you can see it. So there is a, can you see like an LED light reflected in my glasses?
Yeah.
So the catch light in my eyes right now, this is it's a light I made for messing around with this. It is a LED light, and it's made in the shape of a camera. So I made this at the time I was playing around with catch lights. I was curious, could I use catch lights as a way to like add something like hidden details in my photo? The problem is, which is what you've just experienced, is it's too hard to see. If I've been using that light the whole time I've been teaching you guys, if I look a certain way, you can actually see it on my eyes right now. But nobody noticed throughout every week of this class because it's too small a detail. And I spent a lot of time messing around with catch lights to try and do all this cool stuff like this. But nobody except extremely like sort of pixel peepee photographers even notice this, and none of you guys noticed it. So it's kind of completely pointless. But I spent a lot of time messing around with it and trying to think about how could I do. Photographers will argue on the internet about your catch lights in your portraits, and they'll basically say, this portrait is bad because the catch light's wrong, and all this kind of rubbish. And they'll argue with you all the toss about all this stuff. So I wanted to turn that on its head and to use it as a creative tool. So I actually went and looked at catchlights in anime. And anime, it's basically people drawing cartoon characters, and the ones that are very good at it know that they should draw a fake catchlight to make the eyes look real. And you get the same in comics and stuff as well, and in paintings and Renaissance paintings and stuff like that, where they will make sure they include a catchlight to give life to the eyes. And I thought, yeah, I'll try that. I'm gonna do something cool. Spent ages making that wee light. Did a lot of mucking around with other types of light as well, and trying to modify the catchlights to my own will to make them myself, and it worked. But when you're taking a portrait of somebody like this, and their head is like this, and their eyes are like this, and then inside the eye you have a tiny, tiny little detail, it basically was wasted. Nobody could even tell whenever I had done it. So it was kind of like, it's like, you know, it's like when a tree falls in the wood and nobody hears it. If at the end of the day, you put a load of effort into this wee tiny detail and no one notices, so it's kind of pointless.
Matthew,
Yes.
I went on this was a year or two ago, I actually went on a macro photography class. It was down in Wax Photography in Boucher Road. And a guy from England came over and he brought stick insects, a praying mantis, and a tree frog. So the tree frog, really big eyes, and he had the lighting set up. So he had tree frog in the middle, two big lights either side, big square lights.
Yeah.
You know, flash. And he had a canvas cover on them to soften the light. But around the edge of the white canvas, there was what looked like vegetation, you know, like a profile of reeds and grass. And I said to him, why are they like that? And when you looked at the photographs of the frog, the catchlight in the frog's eye, it looked like it was beneath vegetation because the light, you know, the black silhouette of the grass was caught in the reflection in the frog's eye. So instead of looking like it was in a studio, it looked like it was at the bottom of the rainforest.
It's just to illustrate for other folks. I'll show you what Ian's talking about. It's something that's very common in. I'm trying to find some spiders. Let me see. Apologies if you don't like spiders, because spiders have really big eyes as well. And you'll basically see, before you see anything else, you'll see how the photographer did it. If you're a photographer, if you're a sensible, normal person, this won't annoy you at all. But so, are there any ring light ones? Because some people have a real problem with ring lights. You might actually see these yourself and realize there's something weird about them. Of course, I can't find a ring light one whenever I'm looking, but, well, there's one there. Look, there you go. So this is a close-up picture of a spider, but because of the nature of spiders' eyes, you see, okay, so you see all the little individual, I guess, hairs on the spider, and you see its eyes, but actually, hold on a minute, what's this? What's this big thing here? So somebody has put this spider in a white lighting box of some description and then pointed a ring light at them. And for some people, this is really upsetting. This is the photography police again. Having a ring light can be seen as being really bad. Sometimes it makes the eyes look really weird and dramatic and alien looking as well. But in this case, a trained photographer will see this and say, oh, that's weird catch lights. And that's a subjective thing, and some people like it and some people don't. But it's something that you can see, and sometimes it's one of these things when you're trained to see it, it's really hard to unsee it. And that's what Ian's talking about. The guy had drawn leaves and green around the edges to make it look like a natural thing. So like this, to me, this looks like a natural lit photo, but it could be faked. See these blades, if you look really closely, this could be a ring light, and he has drawn grass, or she has drawn grass all the way around the edge of the ring light. You see these little like blades of grass?
Mm-hmm.
That might not be grass at all. That might be, let me see if I can find you a picture of it, because I have one as well. And I've messed around with this too. I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me, but I have one in the house, and I use it for portraits. Actually, it's a really good light. Some of those punchy portraits I showed you are actually done with this. I'd be better off looking up my Amazon to find you a picture.
I've got one of the frog ones open on my computer.
Oh, do you? Show us it here. If you can see go to. Oh God.
Share screen.
Yeah, theoretically, but it never works. Go to share screen, and it might work.
Right, share screen. Host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Did it? No, I didn't, because I tried to get you guys to show me pictures. Oh, damn it. It probably turns off by default now. Let me see if I can find one. Right, going to Amazon, because I bought one of these years ago, so I know it's on my Amazon somewhere. Okay, so I find it. Right. Just to show you what it is. So this is, and these are quite cheap to get. This one's quite expensive, but you can get them. Oh no, this one's not. Sorry, it's £18. This is good and cheap. Here we go. So this is the kind of lighting modifier that Ian's talking about. I've got one. I've actually got 3 or 4 of these lying around, and I experimented with one. So what it is it is a big. It's like a drum. It looks a bit like a drum, and it is like material, and it folds down into a little case, but it's this big kind of drum shape, and your flash goes in the back. Let's see if there's there you go. So your flash goes in the back here, and it bounces around inside and comes out the front as a really lovely soft light. And what Ian's talking about is this, taking a picture of a frog. If you are taking a picture of a macro photo of a frog or something like that, this will show up as a big white ring light. But if you drew grass like with a green pen or a black pen here all the way around the edge, then you'll get this kind of effect. This effect here. This could be legit, or it could be fake, and very well faked. And folks will do that to draw away. So the one that was like the really obvious ones. So this one, for example, see this white here? This is really obvious that they're using some sort of lighting. You can see it in actually all of the little eyes. But the one where they've either drawn on or B changed it in some way, and it's less obvious. I'm trying to find you another more obvious one. There's another one. So that one, they've lit from above with a light panel of some description. So that one's not a ring light. But if we look really close, really, really, really close, we should be able to see. So some of these you can actually see. So here, if you look really close in this one, let me see if I can get this bigger. Hold on. There, it's a little bit better resolution. So whenever you're taking macro photos of certain subjects, their eyes are really reflective. So here you can see this is some sort of blue cloth or tissue or napkin or something. There's their hand, there's their torso, and there's their head, and they've got some sort of light behind them. You can literally see the photographer in this photo. This isn't the torso, this is the camera lens. And they are like holding on. See these blue lines here? This is the same material. This is something they've staged at home. So this looks to be like some sort of cloth or material. And you can see in the picture that this is like being faked up at home. It's a beautiful picture and really, really amazing details on the spider. But some folks in the macro world will see this and go, no, like he's kind of spoiled it, because you can see the whole setup in the eye. And that's when you get like into the catch lights and things like that. And this is like when we're talking about this kind of stuff, if you're only starting out, this means nothing. Um, I might have blown. If you've never thought about catch lights before, this might be all a big surprise to you. But people on the internet will argue about this for years, and mine's better than yours, and this is wrong, and this is right, and blah blah blah. And there's a whole thing. It's a bit like the macro photography itself. People will argue about catch lights. I like ring lights in my portraits. Those ones I showed you. Those ones I showed you from earlier, they were all the ones on Pinterest. So if I can find them again, hold on. Some people really notice this and some people don't. And it's mostly like it's another one of these, it's like a Marmite thing. It's just some people like it, some people don't. These photos, pretty much all of them were taken with the thing I showed you on Amazon. It's a macro light, it's a macro ring light, but I thought, why can't I use that for portraits? I like the soft lighting that it produces. So these photos are taken with like a macro light. Of course, it's not going to load in now. I should be able to see it. And it's not going to load up because it's that old. I can't find it to show you. But basically, these photos were taken with a ring light. And then if you get to see them up close, you'll see each of them. If you look very, very closely at the pupil of their eye, you'll see a ring in their eye. And some people, that's enough to put them off the photo. They'll ignore the fact that she's smiling and making really nice engagement with the camera and having a lovely time, and that she's really relaxed and having a lovely time, and that she's looking really cool, looking over her glasses, and he's looking like tough and cool and blah, blah, blah. They'll ignore all of that stuff and just focus on the fact that you can see a wee tiny circle in their eye. And I'm not saying it's wrong. For some people, that's just a preference and it really upsets them, and that's okay. For me, I don't mind them at all. I'm more interested in the photography itself. And I know the ring light gives this very soft, flattering light. So I was happy to use it for that reason. So hopefully this has been useful. I know it's been a long and rambly thing. I can't teach you this at all. This is something you've just got to spend time developing yourself. The best way by far, I started doing this kind of having an idea and trying to make it happen. I started doing it maybe 10 years ago, and I was terrible at it at the start because I didn't know what to expect or how much time, effort, or energy I'd have to put into it. And then over time, doing it over and over again, started to realize this just isn't possible, or this is possible, but it's going to take a lot of time, or this is possible, it's going to take a lot of help or money or whatever. And those things varied quite a bit. So that's kind of, apologies, it's a class and a lesson, but it's also like that's just how my brain works, and yours might work differently. But if you have tools, you can do a scrapbook, you can do Pinterest, you can do something, but it's something that is very personal to everybody individually. If you've ever made or created or done anything in your life where you have a final end result, you've done this before. You have baked a cake, you have built a bridge, you have whatever. If you've seen a project from beginning to end, you've done this before. You just have to think about it in these terms. So it's that you have an idea that you invent and generate yourself, and then you bring it all the way through and make it happen. So I hope this has helped. Apologies if not. It's about the most fluffy, airy-fairy thing ever. The best part of this is you get to see behind the scenes that, yes, I am human. I make loads of mistakes, and I don't always get what I want in my photography. And any other photographer that tells you otherwise, I will happily argue till I'm blue in the face with them that they're a straight up liar if they say everything they do is perfect every time. They might be 90% perfect. You know, I'm good, but I'm not like world-class best expert ever. But even if they're the best expert ever, they still make mistakes. Everybody does. And it's make mistakes, change things, get better. And hopefully I showed you a little bit of that today.
I found it refreshing.
It's in the photography community, I would be like burned as a witch, you know, because like, how dare you? First off, you're bringing photography into ill repute. How very dare you show your mistakes? You know, we're all supposed to be invincible and amazing. So that is kind of like, there is a lot of that going on and a lot of that elitism. But yeah, so it doesn't always go down well. Be aware that if you ask other photographers to show them, like if you say, hey, can you show me how you did that? They might be really insulted. because it isn't. Most photographers are super shy about making mistakes. I teach it and do it, and I've met enough people to know. And I talked to Sue enough to know that she was super low, had extremely low confidence and self-esteem in her own photography. Even when she was super good and making loads of money, she constantly had this professional doubt, this imposter syndrome, and was constantly telling herself, someone's going to find out that I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm going to be like in big trouble. But just kept doing photography for years and made her first $1 million and literally had no clue what she was doing with shooting an auto. Had no clue what she was doing from a photography point of view, but had a really good clue what she was doing from what looks good and makes her clients feel good.
Next week, Matthew, can we talk about doing a book?
Yes,
a
next
book with text on the opposite page, a lot of text as
yes.
well.
Darian had been asking, that was my plan. I don't know if Elpeth is coming back. If she's not coming back, we might get you guys. I'm going to try and get hold of her again. You guys can pick something for the last lesson, but my plan was for the last lesson, not next week, but the following week, was to do the drink photography. It's like product photography for Elpetha. She's been drafted back into work basically, so I don't know how she's going to work it. But next week, yes, Darian had asked about producing a book basically, and I had a chat with her about this separately, and I've done a bit of it myself, and we're going to talk about processing a little bit. So I'm going to show you some screen share type stuff of processing pictures and things, a small amount of that, but then it's mostly going to be about, which is to me is a lot more important, getting your stuff into reality. We'll go through, I'm just going to probably use Photobox or something. There are a lot of different websites out there that'll help you get your prints printed, but actually getting your little prints or getting a hard copy book are almost exactly the same, and actually super cheap. You can make your own ego gratifying. I was saying I want to do this at some point for my own ego. You can make your own ego gratifying copy book of your own photography, something for people to go, oh, those are cool, and you'd be like, well, actually those are mine, those are my work, thank you very much. It's not actually expensive, 20-30 pound, believe it or not. You can have what looks like a professionally produced photography book. So we're going to run through that next week with Darian. If you're vaguely interested, get some stuff together, because you can follow along with me. You can go through a couple of different websites. I'll probably use Photobox, but it's a basic, you just go through a process, and at the end of it, you have it ready and you can order it if you wish. So it's kind of like, if it's something you're interested, pick your top 20 best pictures ever, but otherwise don't worry. We can go through the process and then you just don't order anything at the end. It doesn't cost you anything at all. Their tools are free to use online. I would recommend them for photos. They're really cheap and they're very good quality whenever you're getting prints online. But there are other Aldi and Lidl.
That's Photobox, Matthew.
Yeah, Photobox is just photobox.com. You can set up an account for free, and basically don't worry if you don't want to. I'm going to show you on screen. I'm going to go through it myself, but it was just, if it's something, Darian, probably for you the most, if you're interested, we can probably get half your work done next week live during class. So Darian's been planning to have, she wants text and she wants pictures and then discussion about the pictures on the other side. And actually that's quite easy to do. So we're going to talk about a whole lot of that next week. Okay.
Okay. Thanks very much.
No worries. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye, folks.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.